fade green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! It is a football Friday here on Birds 365. It's still a little bit of a stretch. They haven't started playing football yet, but it's close enough. Damn, we're down to 9 days before the Eagles season gets underway. You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, hanging with you. Let's see. 1 week from today, John McMullen, will you be traveling? Will the Eagles be traveling? We're getting that much closer to opening day. What's the itinerary look for next Friday?
Next Friday, the Eagles will be practicing at the Novacare Complex. Right? Yeah. Friday practices are light, and then they'll head up there, obviously, on Saturday, and game day on Sunday. So typical NFL week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are the main practices. You'll get an extra day in. It's still tentative, but I expect the Eagles to be back on Tuesday after Labor Day weekend. It might be Monday. It's up to Nick, but and he could give them off Tuesday, but I don't see why he would do that. So it's most likely going to be Tuesday. So they'll get sort of an extra day. You have this extra time, but yeah, and then we're off and running, Jody McDonald.
But then it's downtime because of the CBA. It is amazing that they negotiate out.
Yeah, Friday, you got to get them off. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, gotta have off. Players,
that is, we've talked about this way too many times. It's the only thing the players win on when they go collect the bargaining. They don't ever get any more money. That percentage of gross revenues never jumps up. But hey, we'll give you extra days off. We'll shorten up those practices for you. Okay, fine. That's the only win.
Quality of life. That's what D. Smith would say when he tries to frame his wins. Now we got to learn the new NFLPA executive director.
Right, but he's not looking at any collective bargaining agreement anytime soon. So don't know how he's going to affect quality of life of the players very quickly. But it does present a question, John. And I had to eat crow last year because the Eagles, it seems like, and you always put me in my place and go, Jody, it's collective bargain. You can't do anything about it. The Eagles can't do more. You're making it sound like they're skipping practice. Well, they're skipping practices they can't have as per collective bargaining, but they have amounts of time that they can practice, and they're always under the number. The Eagles just believe that less is more, that they practice smarter, not harder. And I thought it was questionable last season. And how many games they play before they lose, Johnny Mac, last year? When did they start? 7-0, 8-0. I don't even remember off the top of my head.
They were really good. Yeah. I've turned the page on last year. I'm much like Nick Sirianni. So that's for other people when I muck in. But yeah, they were really good last year. 14-1 with the starting quarterback. They lost to Washington. That was the game. I forget what they were at the time, but they were a very good team. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to criticize the way they set things up. And not only were they very good, and this tends to be the the outcome of very good teams, they're very healthy. That's because if you lose a bunch of players, you tend to be very uneven, at least, even if you have a good roster like the Eagles. But we talked about it a lot, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Forget about 17 games. These guys are playing 20 games. They went all through the Super Bowl. Even go back to 2017 when they won the Super Bowl, they lost a bunch of players, from and key players, and were able to persevere. So talk about a special season. That was a special season, but Jason Peters, Jordan Hicks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You had Halapoli Bati Baitai. A lot of people are forgetting starting at left tackle in the Super Bowl. So last year was, we talked about a lot. TJ Edwards, 20 games. Kaiser White, 20 games. Darius Slade, James Bradbury, Marcus Epps, on and on and on and on. A couple guys got banged up. Dallas missed 5 games, but when you compare it to the rest of the league, it's pretty damn good. So it's hard to say, oh, you did it wrong. I mean, I don't like it. I'm more in the Andy Reid camp. If you give me a certain amount of time, I'm going to take that time. I'm going to take all that time. The Eagles, they'll cut practice shorter. They'll do more walkthroughs, but it's hard to criticize them right now.
Not off last year's results. You have to say that they got it right and they know what they're doing. We'll see if that's the case again this year, because it worked last year. We'll find out if it works this year. Again, going back to the schedule, and we'll be nitpicking this apart on an almost daily basis going forward. They have an easier part of the schedule in the beginning of the year. It just is the fact, Jack. They've got a killer run in the middle of it, but New England, not great. Minnesota at home. Tampa's going to be bad. The Washington, and they owe Washington the only home game they lost last year with Jalen Hurts starting quarterback Washington. So, they're going to be up for that. Rams not good. That's an easy part of the schedule. So I'll give them credit if they get out of the gate 5-0 again after going 8-0 at the beginning of last year. But it is an easier part of the schedule. So you got to take those factors in when you're evaluating how the Eagles are actually doing. Some roster moves yesterday, John. We knew it was coming. The Eagles weren't. That's one where they're not going to go on less is more. They're going to take as many players as possible because it gives them more that they can do. And Jeff Lurie is willing to pay for a full practice squad. Every other team in the league does too. So they signed 3 guys who are outside the organization for preseason. We mentioned the cornerback from the Chargers that I think it was Tim McManus had it first that he was.
Yeah, it was Tim. T1 Mullen looks like a slot guy, because he's 5'8", 181 pounds, undrafted rookie from Indiana. So, they need some slot help without Zach McPherson. That makes sense to me. They brought our old friend LaRaven Clark back as a veteran player. Hey, why not? I'm not in love with their depth on the offensive line, at least compared to recent history. So to get a veteran guy who sort of knows the system, knows how to play, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then the other guy was Thomas Booker, second-year defensive tackle from Stanford. Now that I say, well, you need another defensive tackle. That nothing against Thomas Booker. He might be a good prospect, good player, but I don't know. How about another linebacker? And again, people will look at the roster, and I got it right in front of me. They'll look at the roster and say, well, Kyron Johnson's a linebacker. I can't say this so many times. There's edge players and there's all-ball linebackers. I'm talking about all-ball linebackers. They have 3 on the 53 man as we stand today. Still time. As I said, don't lock things in until Wednesday of next week, probably Wednesday morning. That's sort of when they want to have everything exactly where they want it. You know, they have 3 on the 53 man, and then Ben Van Sumeren on the practice squad, who's, you know, tremendous athlete. We talked about him a lot. I think he might be able to help on special teams, but if you're down to him and you have to play him at off ball linebacker, you're going to have some issues. So, yeah, I would have went a little bit deeper at certain other positions than defensive tackle, who they can't even get to Contavious Street. I can't even predict the way Contavious Street can get on the field. That's how deep they are at defensive tackle.
And the thing that surprised me about the Booker signing, and he was a draft pick last year by the Texans. He actually played. He got like 200 snaps last year, which just buries a guy like N'Kobe Dean, who got all of 34. He actually played last year, which is a nice thing. He had some experience. 302 pounds or something like that. Because, John, they spent a lot of time trying to find and brought a bunch of guys in, even on the short term, late in the preseason type deals, to find a quote unquote backup for Jordan Davis, a true guy to play in the middle with the 50-man line, whose pure job is to take up 2 guys and make it easier for everybody else. They still don't have that guy, do they?
No, they don't. And that's why I thought, who knows? They brought in those guys for quick looks at the end of training camp. Robert Cooper, Caleb Sanders, who are big, big guys in that way. And I thought, well, maybe they like one of them and they'll bring them back to the practice squad. Evidently not. Booker, he's sort of more of a tweener guy. He played the edge really at Stanford. And he's a little bit too big for that at the NFL level, so they moved him inside. Maybe they think he's a good prospect, and it's just one of those things. And he's a good player, and it's more about that than anything else. But yeah, I mean, it's it's nitpicking, and that's what you do with good teams. But yeah, they certainly don't have that. Natural backup for Jordan Davis in that 50 role with the 50 fronts, nose tackle, shade tackle. They don't have a backup. So if Jordan goes down, like last year, he missed the 4 games with the high ankle sprain, and he really wasn't healthy after that. He came back and wasn't completely healthy. So if that happens again, we talked about health. He's again one of the few players that did miss some time. You're going to have to play somebody out of positions like they did last year with Javon Hargrave. The year before, last year, they brought in Linval Joseph to sort of settle things down after getting a quick look at Marvin Wilson. Yeah, they don't have that player.
They don't have that guy, which is and I'm both buoyed by it and perturbed by it, because they understand they're still on the lookout for it. The fact that they couldn't fill it, they might have high standards for what they need that guy to do. Maybe they're comparing him to Jordan Davis.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys with 340 pounds that can move like Jordan Davis. So
exactly.
But you can. I mean, Linval was a really good player earlier in his career. Different type of player, just unbelievably strong. But 335, actually, Linval hasn't seen 335 in years, but that's what they list him at. Just a really big, massive guy that's tough to move. I think it's more likely you can find somebody like that, but they haven't been able to do it yet. And maybe that's an indication that if they do lose, and this might be a positive, if they do lose a player like Davis, maybe they'll play differently, which is probably the way you should do it, and play more 40 fronts, and go about it that way. That's one thing I've seen about Sean Desai. I've mentioned it a couple times. He seems more willing to try some different things than Jonathan Gannon. Maybe that's the positive people are looking for when they talk about the change in defense, because the philosophy is going to be the same.
All right, I'm going to give you two choices here, and then we're going to punch up our first guest. Got two good guests coming up today. I'll give you the rundown on that in a second. If here are your two choices, number one, Jordan Davis goes down. It's going to miss 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It's not a week-to-week thing. It's definitely a month plus. So he's going to be out for a period of time, kind of like last year. They've got two choices as to how to handle it. Number one, adjust the defense and play a little bit differently than they want to, or put that call into Linval Joseph and see if we can start the mercenary clock a little early. If Davis should get hurt in week number 4, that he is the guy, and they go right back down the same road they did yesterday. Go get an experienced guy, long in the tooth, has a particular reason he wants to play, chasing rings, as McMullen likes to say. Which do you think is more likely? The Eagles adjust and find a different way, or get that phone call into Linval?
I'm going to take door number 3.
3? You got a door number 3? Where you going, McMullen?
Marlon Tui-Pelotu is going to fill in, at least be given the opportunity to fill in. A lot of people forget Marlon got hurt.
Was Marlon hurt by the time?
Yeah, Marlon got hurt. That was the issue. A lot of people say, well, Jordan got hurt. They went, well, yeah, Jordan got hurt, but Jordan and Marlon got hurt. Like, if Marlon didn't get hurt, I'm not going to say they wouldn't have signed Linval Joseph, but they would have given him the opportunity first to see if he could handle the job. And if he couldn't, then maybe they would have made the call, but he was hurt. So he'll be given the opportunity, much like Marvin Wilson was last year, but it skipped over Marlon. Like, he was given that one chance in Houston, and then they were like, all right, we got to go do something. And that's sort of what happened. But Marlon will get the first opportunity. And here's the problem, Jody. He's an underrated player. He's a pretty good player. And he's not going to fall apart in that type of situation. But he's not going to be great either. So it's kind of like to me, that's what's going to happen. That's not necessarily the best thing, but he's going to be competent. I'll use that word. So they're not going to be desperate, and they're not going to go outside. That would be my prediction.
We hope to never see how it shakes out, because it's incumbent on Jordan Davis getting hurt. None of us want to see Jordan Davis get hurt, but the job of the team is to be prepared in case stuff happens. All right, we try and come prepared every single day, and that includes bringing in outside opinions. So we've got two good ones of them coming today. A little in the later show, Brad Spielberger from PFF, cap analyst and also contributor for overthecap.com, is going to jump in, talk some league-wide stuff, but we're going very Eagles-centric next. Co-host of the Eagles post-game show right here on JAKIB Media, and host of the Mike Missanelli podcast, aptly named, may I mention, the Mike Missanelli podcast.
That is aptly named. Aptly named. I like it.
Named. Mike Missanelli. Mikey Miss going to join us next here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. McMullen, McDonald, Mac and Mac talking to MM, our guy, the co-host of the Eagles pregame show on the JAKIB Media the YouTube channel, which, oh, by the way, as rumor has it that Joe Krause actually picked up his tab to come down the Atlantic City Expressway. I'm not believing that. I think Missinelli goes into his own pocket for that. He's dying to get back down the shore to Oceans to host this year for us on the Eagles postgame show. Mikey Mitz, how'd your summer been?
Who told you that Krause is picking up the tab for us to get down there?
A little bird just told me that. I didn't believe
Really?
it.
Yeah.
That's unknown to me, Jody. And my Easy Pass tab will tell you.
Yeah, those Easy Pass, man, they rack up, man. Woo.
Well, how you doing,
every
fellas?
2 days,
This
I'm looking
season
at my
start.
yeah.
Can we please start the season? I can't take this delay between the last preseason game and the regular season. It's
It's
really
awful,
hard.
Mike. It's awful.
Yeah, it's hard to process.
It's tough to get through this preseason. But I want to talk about your preseason. How ready are you for Seth talking about Sean Desai and this defense? Because I mean, number two wasn't good enough. So
he's a little more optimistic. I had him on my podcast last week. First of all, he's lost like 30 pounds, and I don't know how he did it because he spent 3 weeks in Italy eating pasta. He actually lost weight. Yeah. He looks fantastic. He looks like he's calmer this year and in better shape and ready to go. And yeah, he is anticipating that Desai will do a few things differently.
All right.
It's differently better. That's the question. Different is nice, but does different equate to better? And we won't see. John and I have been debating this back and forth. We were just talking about the fact that Desai seems to be more open-minded. That Gannon had his system, he was sticking to it, and that heck or high water, it was going to be the way he was going to do things. Do you think that is the case, that Sean Desai will be more open-minded? Will the head coach let him be more open-minded?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jody. I think he will be. Looking at him on the sidelines, he looks like a guy, if something's not working, he's going to switch it. So that's what I like. And I think he's going to be a little more aggressive than Gannon, and we'll see how that works. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to start. I think Sirianni's going to trust them, at least early, and see what unfolds here. Listen, they're a good team. There's no two ways around it. They're going to be a very good team, very formidable team. So the defense, to me, is the whole key. Whether that can adjust early on, because I think they're going to be explosive offensively. I think the size job is a lot harder than Brian Johnson's job. But yeah, I think he's a little more adaptable. I could just see that in his personality.
Nick pretty much has one rule for his defensive coordinator, as far as I can tell, Mike, and that's limit explosive plays. Does that limit the defensive coordinator? I mean, does that one rule?
Yeah, to an extent. But again, if he sees the other side of it, John, like if he sees a little aggression really helping him, I think he'll defer to it. I think that he's programmed to think that explosive plays defeat you. But if you can get a little more aggressive and not see it in explosive play, you start to begin to trust that a little more. So that's what I think will happen. I don't think he's going to go overboard aggressive, but I think you're going to see some more blitzing in certain spots than Gannon did to test it. And obviously, if they get burned, they'll adapt to that. But I like the new approach. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, one of the things
they're a better roster. I think their rotation is pretty deep. I think you could do a lot of things with this defense.
One of the things I'm going to be tremendously interested in this year, and it all goes to the comparison of the two defense coordinators, is Nakobe Dean. Because Dean was pretty good at blitzing when he was at Georgia. He could come off the edge and be that one step behind and get to the quarterback, closing the gap quickly. But they don't blitz linebackers. They didn't blitz linebackers at all in the last 2 years with Cannon running in his defense. If the kid's got a strength, would you just put it on a shelf and not use it? Or they
No.
give him a chance to do that?
Maybe they're, maybe they don't want to show it. It's possible that when the season starts, they'll let him loose a little bit, and they just didn't want to. He didn't have a lot of playing time, so linebacker is the $1 million question for them. Are they good enough at linebacker? And I don't know if we know that. And they only have 3 on the roster right now. I'm surprised that they haven't added another one. Maybe they will. But when you're talking about Christian Ellis and Zach Cunningham. That wasn't really the plan going in. Those guys had to kind of survive that roster, and Morrow was the one that was gone. Listen, I value linebackers more than they do. I know Seth.
I think everybody does.
Yeah, I think everybody does. So, who's to say that they don't have it right? We'll find out. But that's a major question. Even Dean is a question. He's the one who's the surviving starter, and everybody's relying on. But we'll see. If you look at the Eagles, they're good at every position. You get to the linebacker and you go, we'll see. But again, they don't value it. So maybe they're right, we're wrong.
Well, and by the way, I think I agree with their devaluation of the position. I just think they've taken it too far. I think they've gone too far. So I think there's a middle road there where you can say, all right, yeah, you should devalue this position in the modern game. We shouldn't devalue it to the point that they have, as you mentioned, not only with unproven commodities, the most proven commodity is Zach Cunningham. Let's be honest. He's been a good NFL player. But to devalue it to the degree they have and to assume, you said something interesting to me because I've heard it from other people as well. This is, I think Jeff McMullen said it, the best roster in Howie Roseman's sort of a GM-ship or de facto GM run. I'm not so sure about that. Last year was pretty stinking good. And especially when you look at the defensive side, there's a couple offenses with Miles and Isaac who were very good players. Not starting superstars, but good players. Defensively, they lost some good players. And starting a linebacker, say what you want, but they lost 2 good linebackers who played 20 games. One who was really good. Yeah. They lose 2 safeties, one who was a playmaker, and they lose a Pro Bowl defensive tackle. And I love Carter. Jody can tell you that. But I can't say he's going to be better than Javon Hargrave on day one. I don't know if it is better than it was last year, roster-wise.
Maybe on paper, not. I just think the rotation is strong enough where they're going to be able to manage that whole situation in the middle. And, it seems to me, John, they're going to play a lot of dime, because I worry about the coverage. And I think that in lieu of the linebackers, they're going to just fill up the secondary a little more to compensate for that. And they're thinking defensively, philosophy-wise, because 3 linebackers is a small number of linebackers having your roster.
Yeah. Mike, you miss John and I were talking about trying to replace Jordan Davis if he got hurt, and they don't have a true middle guy in a 5-man line. He suggested maybe Marlon Tuipulotu could jump in there and do it. I surely give Marlon a chance. I don't know if he's going to be good enough or if he fits that bill, but I got a bigger concern. And I know this is negative, which I try not to do here because they'll kill me on the stream, but you got to give all possibilities, worst case scenarios. What the hell happens if A.J. Brown goes down? Grant Calcaterra moving out to play wide receiver for the Philadelphia? We just take it for granted that Smith and Brown are going to be there every single play. Yeah, but then again, a high ankle sprain happens and a guy's out for a month. What the hell do they do if A.J. Brown goes down?
Yeah, you said that. My dog even heard that.
Yeah.
He's
My
not
dog
happy
is-
with me. What else is new? I'm taking
Yeah.
even the canines off.
Yeah.
No, listen, that's a major concern, obviously, because we're counting on those two guys to be, the foundation of what they're trying to do. So I guess you could say that about any team, but you're right. Who do they have really? They have a couple guys in the practice squad that aren't ready to play NFL football at that position, and I guess Quez Watkins and Zacchaeus. Yeah, we'll see. If they lose a major player like that, they could be in trouble. There's no question about it. But let's look at this preseason and what we've been quibbling about. Like, we're trying to make up stuff here.
Yeah, you got to quibble about something. It's a good team.
Okay, I get scared. What about the one position here, and who they fill in their practice squad? I mean, it's a far cry from what we used to talk about. With the Eagles, and now I guess they have to find a punter. So let me throw some support out for a Penn State homie.
Yeah, Blake,
who's probably got the best leg of all those guys. So I think Blake Gilligan, can he survive, John and Jody?
Yeah, why not? I mean, they tried out 3 punters. Blake was one of them yesterday. I know everybody's hyper focused on replacing Aaron Sipas. Pat O'Donnell is probably, he's a veteran guy. He's done it probably the most. And Colby Wadman, who I don't know, but those are the 3 punters. And obviously everybody wants the punt god. I hear that constantly. I've heard no thoughts of the Eagles bringing him in, right or wrong. Can they do better than Aaron Sipas? Yes, but I will say this, talk about nitpicking. I've been nitpicking. So we're going to get down in the weeds here, Mike. Special teams.
I mean. We're
Special teams.
Yes.
Nobody gives a crap about Michael Clay in that building. I feel bad for Michael Clay. Everybody wants to. You're talking about Penn State. Zach McPherson played there before Texas Tech. He was one of their best special teams players. He's lost for the season. Sean Bradley, Temple guy, one of their best special teams players, lost for the season. Then they cut Kayvon Wallace. They cut the 2 rookies who look like good special teams players. Mekhi Gardner, Ben Van Sumeren, they're both back on the practice squad. Maybe they can elevate them, do things that way. But guess what? If you don't sign a punter, you got to elevate a punter. If you don't sign a punt returner, you got to elevate a punt returner. Britton Covey. What the hell's going on with special teams?
Yeah, I guess
Let's
we never put
pick
enough
some nits, Mike.
We never put enough emphasis on that special team factor, and you're right. You're right about that. Who returns punts right now?
I assume Covey, to be honest.
Who's your guy? Covey?
Yeah.
They'll
elevate him. But they're going to have to. Olamide can do it. I guess you can get through it for a couple games with Olamide Zacchaeus. Maybe Justin Evans. He did it in the preseason. They can do it. They obviously have to elevate a punter if they don't sign one. You need a punter. As good as the offense is, they need a punter. So they've kind of hamstrung themselves. They have some time until next Tuesday or Wednesday. But, special teams, it was an issue last year. They weren't good enough. And they've lost their best players, and they haven't replaced them.
All right. So all these things that we're talking about, could that be a downfall to the point where they're not the best team in the NFC?
No, but it could lose them the Super Bowl, as it already did. I would argue the play that tilted the game, people talk about the defense. The play that tilted the game was the Tony punt return. That tilted the game to Kansas City. So to me, that was the biggest play in the game, special teams.
So you're already at the Super Bowl level. What could prevent them?
Well, I want to talk to you about that as well.
I take it a little lighter than that. I just right now, I think getting the #1 seed is extremely important. I haven't even gotten to that next level yet. I'm trying to figure out who could get past them to win that position.
Yeah, I'm not sure there is a team in the NFC. If it is, it's San Francisco, and then I think there's a drop off between the top 2 teams and everybody else. All right, Mike, I gotta get a confidence read on you because we bat this around often here on Birds 365. Is the defensive defections the biggest question mark coming into the year, or it's two new coordinators. It's never happened before. A team goes to the Super Bowl, loses both of their coordinators. By the way, good luck to both Jonathan Gannon and to Shane Steichen. Their teams are going to be bad. I mean, just flat out bad. Between the two, the Eagles the Eagles could double up the number of wins that Gannon and
they
Shane
should. They
Steichen
not
get
only
together.
could, they should. They should double up.
And so we sit back and say, see what you guys left. Look at you now.
Exactly.
Like the scene from Scarface. Look at you now.
All right. We've already talked about deciding what he may not do. A little bit more flexibility. Nice.
Yeah, it's a really good. I think it's Desai more than it is Brian Johnson. I have more confidence in what they do offensively, and when you get to the defense, there are a lot of things that have to really come through for them. And one is that defensive tackle rotation with the rookie being thrown in there, not getting hurt. One is the linebacker concept. The safety a little bit. So Desai, I think, is a lot. His job is going to be a lot more important than Brian Johnson.
Here's my only reservation with that. And I know Johnny agrees with me. We're on the same page on this one. Shane Steichen was a very good play caller. There's a lot of interpretation to it. There's pushing the right buttons at the right time. It's even tough to put a finger on and be able to describe other than check the results. Oh, by the way, he was very good at it because the results say he was very good at it. Brian Johnson's got this long-standing relationship with Jalen Hurts. He's well thought of around the league. He's never called an NFL game before as a play caller. So that's a big unknown for me. And he's being comped to a guy who was outstanding at his job last year. You got any worries that Brian Johnson just won't be as good a play caller as Shane Steichen?
A little bit, but they're so diverse on offense that I don't know that it's going to be that difficult for him. I look at it. I love the running back rotation, and they'll be able to match that up with whoever, whatever they need from that particular guy. The tight end's great. The two receivers are great. Their offensive line is great. So I don't know. To me, if you've got all that material, it's a little easier for you to play call to be successful because those guys, talent-wise, are going to deliver for you no matter what you play. Call. So I'm not. Maybe I should be a little more worried about it. I'm just not. I'm more worried about how they line up defensively, and now John's got me worried about special teams.
Well, now you brought up expectations. Now, see, I'm with you. I'm not skipping steps to the Super Bowl. I think making the Super Bowl last year was an accomplishment. I just talked about this last night with Tone, our producer. Like I hear so many fans, they're like, they think it was egregious that they lost the Super Bowl. Like that's a common occurrence, Mike, that's not even worthy of any kind of self. Now I get the emotion of losing the game. Jody and we agree on Shane Steichen play calling. One thing we disagree on, I think the best team lost the Super Bowl. Jody's a bottom line guy.
Yep.
Kansas City won the game. They won the game. I mean, you got to give them the tip of the cap. But I think the best team lost. That's an accomplishment. That is the best team last year I've ever covered. I've been covering this league for too long. I'm too old. I covered the 98 Vikings, covered the 2017 Eagles Super Bowl team. This team was better, last year's team. They lost the big game. I get it, the emotion, but that was an accomplishment. To assume that that's going to happen again, boy, it just doesn't work that way. The expectations to me are out of whack.
I agree more with Jody on this because they got beat by the best playmaker in the league who made plays. And so I go, okay, well, I got to defer to that. It's like when they lost to the Patriots years ago. I said, you know what? The Patriots were a little more experienced to win that game. So I don't get upset with it. I think this maybe even energizes the Eagles more to win it. They lost, and it was a matter of fact that they lost to the playmaker who beat them. And I don't buy – I know the history says the opposite, that when you get there, you usually don't get back. But I think there's a lot of incentive to get back with this team, and I think they're directed very well towards that. And they've got a leader who's a quarterback who just doesn't allow himself any breath at all to fail. So I like the position they're in. And to me, it all comes down, if you get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, you get there. And the team you now play is going to be a different team than what team you played last year. And you maybe should be better than that team that you play. So I have nothing but optimism about this year. I'm not worried about the slide down. And I know that there are these components you have to look at and say, well, the coordinators are different. This is different. They're depending on some inexperienced players and some experienced defensive players left. I get all that, but I just think they're good. And I think they're directed.
I do, yeah. And by the way, I agree with you. They lost the best playmaker in football. But on one day in February, the best playmaker in football was the second best quarterback on the field. I truly believe Jalen Hurts played a better game. Now, you had the unforced error, which is very uncharacteristic and very unlucky. But the best player on the field was Jalen Hurts.
You're probably right. But I look at it like, hey, you know what? They lost to Mahomes. A lot of people have. So, I get destroyed when they lose to a team that I believe they should beat. And I went into that game thinking, I'm not so sure they can beat this team, even as good as they are, because of this dude. And I don't know. But this year's a different year for me. I think that I'm very optimistic about this year's team.
And the whole thing about the unforced error, there's so many different ways to look at it. You don't drop the football. Hey, come on, it's an unforced error. That's a bad play. Anyway, it was unlucky.
Yeah.
Except it wasn't. He dropped the football. You can't drop the football in that spot.
So does that still make him the best player on the field there?
Well, I asked you guys. I think he was. I think he was the best player on the field.
Except for that.
That wasn't, well, not except for that. That's involved. I mean, that's part of that's part of what you decide. He made it a bad play. Nobody goes through a football game. That's not one of Patrick Mahomes' best games. He performed in some big high leverage spots. But if you look at the numbers, if I told you the numbers for Patrick Mahomes before the game, you guys would have both said, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. So, I mean, he's performed at a much higher level. And like I said, no questions asked, best player in football, best playmaker in football. But man, Jalen Hurts was better than him on that particular day. Now, I still think Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback overall. But yeah, I don't know how you can watch that game and say he wasn't the best player on the field, but that's just my opinion.
All right. So, and with his mindset, he's going to be even better. So there should be less worries. Right.
I'm not worried because, I don't, at the end of the day, win, lose or draw, I still got to cover the game. My job doesn't change, but from the standpoint, I'm just talking of the expectations. Look, and forget about Jalen Hurts, runner-up MVP, playing at that level on that stage. We talk about it all the time with the defense. Number 2 defense, number 1 ranked passing defense. I guarantee you one thing, Mike, they're not getting 70 sacks this year. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
I'm going to guarantee that.
You're probably right about that. And maybe I'm not accounting for there's going to be a little slide down numbers wise. But to me, if they don't if they're not the best team in the NFC, I'd be extremely disappointed. I mean, I don't know what game schedule. They lose a couple of games in that tough 6-game schedule. I would be disappointed because that would probably knock them out of that number 1 seed.
It's gonna be them and the 49ers, and the whole who is the better team at the end of the season. Eagle fans always seem to say except for the unforced error. Well, it happened. Except for the punt return. Well, it happened. That's part of the Philadelphia Eagles is their inability to cover punts, and a good punter who can get off a good punt. You can't just wave a magic wand and say, well, we don't want to evaluate that. It happened. It was part of the game, and you got to factor that in. That's why the Chiefs won last year. And that
I agree with you. So you're batting heads now with John on that.
Yeah, he
continues this little sparring match.
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious that where we differ. Jody's the bottom line guy. I get it. I mean, the team wins. but you guys covered sports forever, both of you. I mean, the best team doesn't always win. There's upsets every week. Same thing in the biggest game. There are upsets, and the best team doesn't win. To me, it's common sense. It happens all the time. Literally, where the best example in the NFL, Mike. Can anybody sit there and say when the Giants upset the best Bill Belichick Patriots team that the best team won? I mean, come on.
Yeah, the
you're
Eagles
right.
didn't come in undefeated, John. They had the same exact number of losses that the Chiefs had.
No, that's not my point. I'm just trying to say the overall aspect. It's much closer between the Eagles and Chiefs than the Patriots and Giants. That's the biggest outlier I can come up with off the top of my head. The Patriots were so much better than the Giants, but the Giants won the game. And credit to them.
It can happen.
It happens all the time in sports.
Right. But I think they were that close coming in. And then the best team, Mike, when you go down to Oceans, you go make a bet. After the game, are you allowed to bring up your ticket and go, hey, but the better team actually lost. Can you cash this one for me? Then I look, go, and no, you lost.
I'm still trying to find that casino
whether you get paid or not, right?
But that's not my point. I'm not gambling.
That.
I'm just evaluating a football game. I'm not gambling. I'm not, I'm saying the Eagles were the best team in football. I thought that pretty much all season. They were the deepest, Mike heard me say it. You've heard me say it. They were the deepest, most well-rounded team in football.
Yeah, they
didn't
wowed
win
us.
in the end.
They wowed in every postgame show. They wowed us every game. It's like, what, really?
Yeah.
I agree with that. But going into that game, I don't know. I didn't think that they were positively the better football team in that game because of the pedigree of that other team, the experience level, because the one guy who just is crazy.
Well, you also got the great coach as well. I'm not criticizing Kansas City. That's the best coach quarterback combination of this era, certainly. So anybody who loses to Kansas City, it's not exactly a wild upset. I think it's a slight upset that the Eagles lost that game. That's all. Here's
the way I looked at it coming in. Both teams were 14-3. The Eagles had a much easier path to the Super Bowl. The NFC wasn't all that good, and the Chiefs had to get through the AFC to get there, and it was evidenced by they needed their field goal kicker to win games for them 2 straight weeks in the postseason, and the Eagles had 2 laughers. That's pretty much the same for me. Get to the final game, may the best team win. The best team wins, they're the best team. And that's the way I looked at the Chiefs last year.
No, there's no nuance with that. I'm a nuance guy.
Yeah, some things are.
I'm more of a bottom line guy too, Jody. So.
Yeah, some things are more cut and dry than that. All right, Mike. You did say earlier you like the Eagles running back situation.
Yes.
And we assume that they're going to share the load. Don't know. We'll find out over time. I'm going to flip the script on you. Last year, the Eagles had 4 running backs on the roster. And every week, John would be handed the inactive list. And it was the book of Sherman. And who am I missing again? Job's book of Sherman.
The sermon from the book of Job.
Right. They were inactive every single way. Trey Sherman played 2 games or 1? I know he got a carry in 1.
He got the big Jacksonville 2 carries in the big Jacksonville game.
Yeah, he might have been active twice during the year, but otherwise he was inactive. They lose Miles Sanders and they replace him with both Rashad Penny and Swift. That's 4. Last year they dressed 3 every single week. That means somebody's going to sit each week. Is that going to be rotating as well? If we believe who's going to get the ball, who's going to get the carries, who's going to get the activity, how do they decide? If they're only going to play 3, somebody's got to sit. Trey Sermon was the guy all last year. Who's going to be the guy this year? How are they going to work that?
Maybe it'll be different this year. Maybe they won't sit that. That maybe leaves you a little short on special teams.
So another guy who can't play special teams on the active roster.
Well,
how's that going to work?
That's a really good point on what they're going to do there. I didn't even think about them not dressing 4 because I think they need
you think they're going to dress all 4?
Almost. Huh? I think they need to get something out of each one of those guys at particular parts of the game. I think that might be their strategy, but that does leave them short in another area. So that's probably a concern. But those guys are so diverse. I can see them being utilized in a lot of situations during a game. So I don't know what they're going to do. That's a good point, whether they'll dress 3 or 4.
At Mike Miss 25, make sure you follow Mike Missinelli on Twitter, or X as we call it now, MikeMiss.com, and the podcast, the Mike Missinelli podcast. Make sure you
The
listen
Mike
to
Miss
that.
25, by the way, was in honor of Ben Simmons when he wore 25
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Well,
And,
Ben's coming back.
Yeah,
by the
Ben
way.
It is
wants to
coming
come
back,
back.
'cause-
He come back
Yeah,
with me, Mike.
he'd really like to come back to
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
He loves it here, and why shouldn't he? Let's be honest. I'd love to see him. You should bring
Oh, my
Carson
God,
Wentz
he's
back
got
as
it.
well.
I've never
Or-
seen a guy like this
Yeah.
ever in my life.
I'm with
Agreed.
you with Ben Simmons. Ooh. By the way, Nick Nurse was at Eagles practice yesterday. Nick
Yeah.
Nurse is, he's in for a hell of a season. That poor guy. He
Yeah.
doesn't know what he signed up for. But it's Spurs 365. So we'll bring it back to the Eagles. You mentioned the running backs. I'm not a big fan of committees. I got to be honest with you, Mike. I want to, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to call it bell cow, lead back. I want Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders was a lead back. When I hear what you're saying about the traits, but that puts more pressure on Brian Johnson. We were talking about Brian before, because then you got to start thinking about trend busting. In other words, all right, if Penny's the guy between the 20s running the football, the defense knows Penny's the guy between the 20s running the football. If Gainwell's the hurry up back, they know Gainwell's the hurry up back. If Swift's the guy who's going to get the bubble screens, they know Swift's the guy who's going to get the bubble screen. And all of a sudden, you gotta be cognizant of that, and you got to be really disciplined to not tip what you're doing. And I think that makes things harder. Again, it's nitpicking, but I'm not a big fan of the committee.
I've changed on that, John. I think the way the league is going, I used to think like you, and that one guy had to be the guy. But I think they can scheme this. I mean, their offensive line is so good that they can scheme. We do this. We're still going to do it better than you, and then we're going to get some juice out of it. So, that's why I kind of look at this situation. I think the league has evolved to the point you keep guys fresh, and you put them in their best positions, and you convert that play because you're so good offensively and your offensive line is so good. So,
All right, we've discussed the Eagles enough. I got a Missinelli question before we let you run.
Ben Simmons.
Not Ben Simmons. Has nothing to do with.
I could talk for an hour on that dude.
Purely to do with Mike Missinelli. General Knowledge Wednesday. What do you miss most about it?
I missed the completely ridiculous guesses of the answers, because that was such value for a show. Like how somebody could be so far off,
Oh yeah,
or not get the easiest questions. That was the delight of that for me. You don't want to make fun of people, but you had to. And when you start making fun of people that way, I think that I was, good at making fun of people. I don't know if that's a good quality or not.
I am going to be 100% honest with you, Mike. When I be in the car, I'd be listening to General Knowledge Wednesday. More than trying to get the answers right, I would try and decipher ahead of time, will the guy get the answer himself, whoever's on the line, by judging the quality of conversation up to that point. Like,
you can get a feel for that.
Right. This guy's got no friggin' chance, whatever question Mike has. Before you'd ever ask the question, I tried to decipher where I thought, more so than what the question was. I didn't even listen to the question. Just, will this guy get it right or get it wrong? And I got to give you credit because you were very good at handling him and doing that. I missed General Knowledge Wednesday. I needed to know how much you missed it as well.
Yeah, it was fun. I used to love doing it.
Did you make all those questions up yourself? Do you do the research?
Yes, I
do.
do. I do all the research for those questions.
Really?
I found various websites that I thought would be perfect for it. So there was always a theme to it, and I would pick those out. And It's funny because I would try to ask an easy question when we needed to get the count up, because we had set an over-under number on how many we would get right during the day. And I go, we're way behind. So let me at least make it like close to the number so we add some drama in here. But and then if it got too crazy, I would ask a question that I knew they had no chance to get. When I wanted to shut it down.
He will not. You try and shut it down on the Eagle post game, so you're going to have a problem because Seth Jonas, the guy's sitting next to you.
Yeah, that goes on for how long, John? 3.5 hours this year?
Yeah, 14 hours. Right. I think by the time I get up there, it's about 14 hours.
I have a backache after those shows.
And good luck putting the submission in to get your tolls refunded, Mike. That's just not happening, you know.
No, I guess not.
Not going to be getting that easy.
We're not going to get compensated for gas either. That's a half a tank.
No. Yeah, you got a little bit of a ride. Mike, very much looking forward to seeing you all season long after the games. Check out the Mike Missinelli podcast as well. We'll have you on. I know it's a little overkill during the season, but we don't care. We enjoy when you're on the show with us. So be expecting my call in season, Mike.
My pleasure, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, Jody, John.
Mike Missinelli here with us on Birds 365. All right, timeout coming. Mikey Miss, thank you very much for hopping on. Brad Spielberger, thank you very much for hopping on in advance. He's going to join us coming up next in about 20 minutes here on Birds 365.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES, Eagles.
McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. We went quickly to it. Mike got us into it. The Eagles workout guys from yesterday. 3 punters came in. A linebacker came in. Another long snap. What was that all about? They're trying to motivate Rick Lovato here. Brought in an extra.
I remember with these workouts, now with the Eagles, obviously punter is more obviously immediate, but you'll see throughout the season a number of names will come out, especially early in the season when that teams work out, not just the Eagles, all across the league. And you're trying to build a dossier on players in case something happens. So my guess it has more to do with that than anything else. But because, the Eagles have done with that in the past. They've lost long snappers to injury numerous times. And all of a sudden you have to pick somebody up off the street and you want to be prepared to do it. So I think the long snapper part of it's just due diligence type of thing. See who's the best of the guys who are not employed, just in case.
By the way, John, I look down at my sheet and I see that today is the 600th episode of Birds.
Whoa, 600. Damn.
600. A nice round
Mikey
number.
missed
600.
on 600.
He
That's
was
nice.
number 600. Brad Spielberg is going to be our second guest on number 600. And in the first 599 shows we've done, I don't think the word dossier has ever been used before. So I got to give you credit for getting dossier in on show number 600.
All right. Well, I throw that out. I'm surprised I haven't thrown that out. Usually,
I don't know. I'm just making it up, but I just don't ever remember you using it before. But it's a good word, and I understood exactly what you're trying to say. And here's the good news about this being 600. If we do 5 a week, holiday here or there. Oh, by the way, Tuesday we're off. Monday we're off for Labor Day, so we'll be back again on Tuesday. I'm figuring number 700 is going to come right in the Eagles playoff run, late December, early January, somewhere there about some 20 weeks down the road is right around when the Eagles are starting to make their Super Bowl run. So we'll click off the next 100 at a key juncture of the season. Let me ask you what I asked Miss Anelli about the running backs. We all think and ask questions about and speculate on how they're going to be used and who's going to do what. And you've got a good grasp on it because you're there at practice and you continue to tell us, hey, it's Kenny Gainwell because he gets more reps than anybody else. Now it's specialized. So when it's non-specialized situation in games, how are the Eagles going to do it? Well, we don't know yet. Do you think somebody's going to have to sit every week? They only went with 3 running backs last week, and you and I continue to harp on the fact that the special teams, as we can judge it right now, doesn't look chock full of great possibilities or guys with experience playing special teams. I'm not even talking about returning. I'm talking about coverage. You don't see any of those 4 running backs playing coverage on special teams, do you?
Nope. Now, Boston can help as a returner.
Return guy, right. That I get.
But yeah, no, I mean, I keep bringing it up and it is nitpicking. I'll self-report myself. It's definitely nitpicking because as much as, coaches will pay lip service and how we paid lip service to the importance of special teams, let's be honest, every team doesn't value it as much as offense, defense. I mean, that's all hypocrisy, but there are teams that value it a heck of a lot more than the Eagles seem to be valuing. And by the way, one of those teams used to be the Eagles. When I brought up John Harbaugh earlier in the week. I mean, he was the guy when it came to special teams in this league as a special teams coordinator for many years. And Dave Bipp was one of the best and still is in Detroit for many years. And this team was famous for special teams players. Chris Maragos has made the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
Ike Reese, I brought up, your colleague at WIP, tremendous special teams player. Brian Brayman, on and on and on and on. They don't do that anymore, which is correlation to the same thing as running back and linebacker. They've devalued it. Are they right? Maybe they are right because kickoff coverage doesn't matter as much because of the rule changes. Punt coverage doesn't matter as much because of the evolution of punters, although they can't find a punter. Maybe they will with this group. Doesn't matter as much. And maybe that's what's behind it. But they lost the Super Bowl because of a stinking punt. I don't know. Maybe that would have woke somebody up and said, maybe pay a little bit more attention to this aspect.
It'll be very interesting week number 1 to see how many running backs they actually activate. Because, and again, different.
And that's typically, if you're a
staff.
4th running back, you got to help on special teams significantly, and that doesn't mean one kickoff return.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have that guy. So my guess is they're only going to play 3. And I will continue to say at some point in the season, if he's going well, and right now I would guess that Rashad Penny, well, we don't even know how they're going to use these guys. Rashad Penny could be an important part of it if he is, as you say, the 20-20 guy. But they'd have some balance, and maybe Gainwell gets some of that. But then Penny gets some stuff down by the goal line. They can't be predictable. I thought that was an outstanding point you made about if they get slotted in their roles, then the other team is going to be able to pick up on the fact that they're slotted in their roles, and they're going to be prepared to stop it. So I think there's got to be some flexibility. If they only dress 3 every single week, it's going to shoot my theory down that Rashad Penny at some point is going to get some rest time, that they're going to give him downtime because they want to protect him from injury if he's going well. Mandatory downtime as dictated by the coaching staff, as in days off, will not play in a game, might have the most rushes in a game and then sit the next game. I read a story today about somebody speculating that Christian McCaffrey might get less carries, less touches in San Francisco this year than a usual year for him. Now, remember last year, he was with the Panthers to start before he went to San Francisco, went nuts. But his usual usage when healthy in Carolina, that they might cut back on him, a.k.a. load management. I think that Rashad Penny's going to get a load management game in the middle of the season. I don't know if they'll ever sit McCaffrey, but do you think we'll see load management? I'm standing by it. I know you're not a fan of it. I think the Eagles are going to use it at the running back position this year.
Well, it's not that I'm not a fan of it. I think it makes sense in the NBA and even maybe baseball, where you play a lot of games. I think in football, because you only play 17 games, I think the Eagles use load management all the time, but they do it during the week. With certain guys, whether it's, Jason Kelsey or Fletcher Cox or some of the veteran players, or even some of the players with younger players with significant injury histories. Landon Dickerson, Josh Sweat would be the notable examples. They do maintenance with those guys all the time, but it's during the week. When you only play 17 games, if you're healthy, you got to play. I mean, it's just, I think it's a numbers game from the NFL perspective. And you can manipulate things. Like Nick brought up a good point that you don't think about all the time. At least I don't think about it all the time. Football's the only professional sport where you practice more than you play. And it's true. And it's like, he's got a point. And that's the practice portion of it, is where they do the load management aspect of it.
Right. But here's what I would say to Nick if I were there. There's a reason for that, because it's such high tension, high physicality when you actually play. That's why they only play as little as they do as compared to as much time as they practice. So when you give some guy load management in practice, how much are you really cutting them back? You're not going all that hard anyway. You give him a game off, now you actually are reducing the chance for injury. Now you really are sparing a guy's body. There's a reason why they practice more than they play, because playing is so high-level physical that it takes its toll. You want to really give a guy some load management? Let him skip a game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people thought they might even, when they extended the schedule, there was a lot of talk, if you remember, about mandating that players could only play 16 games. So in other words, you had to rest even your best player, even your quarterback, for one game. And, people were saying, get it, theorizing, get it out of the way early, get it out, for a star player or something. Never came to fruition because.
Which, by the way, were you a fan of that?
No, I'm not a fan
Oh,
of
I
it
loved
because
it.
for
I
for
loved it. Are you kidding me?
for
The
for the exact
strategy
reason.
attached to it, when you're going to give your guy the day off. Do you wait and then he gets hurt? And, oh my God, we sat him early.
Well,
He
yeah,
misses a game because of injury. Oh, that would just make it so much more entertaining and debatable. As a member of the media who's got to cover it, I absolutely loved it.
Well, from the standpoint of creating, talk for what we do,
Yeah, that's what
it's
kind of what we're
probably.
doing here, Johnny Mac.
But I'm talking about in the game in general. I mean, it's it would create more strategy. By the way, coaches hate that.
Oh,
Anything that
I'm not
creates
surprised.
anything that creates potential second guessing, they
Sure,
hate.
of course.
So that from that standpoint. But when you're talking about star players, like again, and Greg, I'll bring up Greg Popovich is sort of the godfather of load management.
Oh, yeah.
The fan aspect of it too, and the NBA. I mean, when the Spurs were the Spurs and they were great, and the Tim Duncan Spurs and Tony Parker Spurs and Manu Ginobili and those great teams, NBA games are like an event in other cities, and like with San Antonio's going into Memphis, maybe people are going, I want to go see Tim Duncan. I want to go see Tim. And then all of a sudden they don't see any of them because it's
Right.
load management there. I don't like it from that aspect either. That's just an NBA example. So if you go into, Tom Brady's going into, insert city. Oh, but Tom's not playing today. I don't know that. And people say I don't care about the fans. I do care about the
Good
fans.
for you,
and
Johnny
that
Mac,
aspect.
the
And that
advocate
aspect.
for the fans. I appreciate you.
And that
Screw
and
it.
that
I don't care.
and
I'm
that
more
aspect
worried
of
about
it.
conversation.
Yeah. And that aspect of it, I mean, it is a business. I say all the time, you're picking these people's pockets to begin with. That's what bothers me from all, whether it's merchandising, I talk about it all the time. And then I talk about all the time in the preseason. Yeah, it's insane. You charge these people those prices.
That I can get behind in defending the fans. It is the fact that preseason tickets are, and some do the right thing and scale back, but it's part of the season ticket package. So you're paying for it whether you actually plan on going to the game or not. All right, one thing we're going to talk about with our next guest, Brad Spielberger from Pro Football Focus, cap analyst. Big signing in the NFL yesterday. Hockenberg signs a
TJ Hawkinson. Yeah. Kwesi Odofa-Mensah finally did something. I think he's had the job for, I don't know, 16 months. He finally did something.
Got him signed to a contract extension, $66 million over 4 years, which resets the tight end market. It could have some effect on Philadelphia. Now, not this offseason, heading if Dallas Goedert runs in, walks in Howie Roseman's office and slams his fist on a desk, you got to redo my contract because DJ Hawkinson got his done. Dallas, go back to practice. We'll get to you. Don't worry about it, buddy. They just redid his contract. So not immediate, but at some point, like at the end of the year, if Goddard goes for 80, 120, 1,100, has a Zach Ertz type season, oh yeah, he's going to come knocking at Howie's door to get his thing redone. One guy can reset the market at a specific position, can they not, John?
Well, yeah, that's how it works. I mean, TJ's a very good player. I would say, the top three I sort of set apart, which is Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews. Then comes Goddard. Then comes TJ. So he's a top 5 tight end, but he's probably number 5. But that's how it works. It's his turn, so he becomes number 1. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can't surpass the top guy, but in this instance, he was able to do it. And I think, again, it probably has more to do with a young general manager. People are spoiled in Philadelphia for a lot of reasons when it comes to football. And one of the reasons is the GM. Experience matters. Experience matters. And Howie's really good and at every aspect of this. But guess what, Jody? He was not really good as a young general manager. And that's what's going on with a lot of these other teams. You know, and I picked on Chicago. Now I'm picking on Minnesota. They have something in correlation. Young, inexperienced general managers. Eagles went through that. You don't want to go through that if you don't have to go through that. I'm amazed that more people don't. Now, I get it. It's a bottom line business, and it's cyclical, and it's very hard to be disciplined like Jeffrey Lurie is. Man, the Eagles are spoiled.
Right, but
they don't. Yeah.
The example you're giving a great example, John. Howie wasn't great at it when he first started doing it.
That's the point.
So guess what? Point. You gotta go through the startup costs. We talk about startup costs all the time with players. Well, there's startup costs for general managers too.
Yes, exactly, Jody. But here's the point. You're right. I expect these mistakes. Quessie's not going to see year 10. Never mind year 15. Ryan Poles is going to see year 10. Never mind year 15. Now, can I guarantee that? Of course not. They might wake up and realize we've been doing it wrong, but everybody else is going to cycle these guys through. And this poor guy's going to, oh, he's doing a bad job. He made a mistake. I'm going to fire him and hire the next guy. That's why I'm saying Eagles fans are spoiled. Yes, did you have to live through the bad to get to the good? Of course. You had to get to, but then you don't, Jeffrey Lurie doesn't just say, all right, bad season, bunch of injuries, I'm going to blow out the general manager. Now he's blown out head coaches and he's blown out coordinators, and people asked him to fire Howie numerous times, but they should get their mea culpas when it comes to that. They really should, because Jeffrey made the right decision.
I think you got to give these guys a little bit of a chance, the young general managers.
Oh, I agree with. I think I'm agreeing with you 100%. I think you should let them grow. My point is, they're going to fire them for these mistakes. That's my whole point. I think you have to let them learn from the mistakes and get through it. And then when they gather some experience, they're going to be savvier and they're going to be better. But that's not how this league works, except in very rare instances, Philadelphia being one of them, who are patient. These organizations that are patient and let these guys grow.
But then there's Mickey Loomis down in New Orleans, who's been doing it for a while, and how he continues to take advantage of them. So some guys grow into very good general managers, and other guys unfairly get fired too quickly, and then still others, for some reason, seem to hang on.
And we'll talk about. I think I asked Brad that question once. Who's he's impressed with the young GMs? I'll ask it again. I think that's one big advantage the Eagles have, man. I mean, Howie has learned. Howie was not good early in his tenure. Now he's freaking great.
As a matter of fact, he is in our green room. So let's take a quickie timeout. Cap analyst and writer for Pro Football Focus, contributor for OverTheCap.com, Brad Spielberger, joins us next here on Birds 365.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Football Friday on Birds 365, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. We got our buddy joining us from PFF, Brad Spielberger. And I got to tell you, Brad, when John ran into you at Eagles practice, he immediately went into the measurables. He goes, damn, Spielberger's tall. Didn't know he was that tall. What are you stretching it out at these days?
Yeah, I'm at 6'7". I was hoping to get a tight end tryout from the Birds. You know, Tyree Jackson moved on, so I was hoping I would get a look, but they didn't give me an opportunity.
Yeah, we got a beat guy, Brandon Lee Gouton, what's Brandon, 6'9"? So
at least 6'8". Yeah.
We had a rangy group of reporters there that day. But it was good to see you, Brad. At Eagles practice. I was talking, about Howie Roseman versus some, I think I asked you this question before. What young general manager has impressed you the most coming off the TJ Hawkinson extension in Minnesota, which is a team you used to work for? I don't know. Kwesi hasn't done much. He finally did something. Obviously the personnel aspect, the draft, and I expect him to get something done with Justin Jefferson soon. But I was thinking about it. It made me think about Howie as a young GM. Wasn't good. Experience matters. Now he's really good. And I don't think people are patient enough to get over that hump with young GMs. You think that's
right? I mean, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, sorry. No, they get these 4 and 5 year deals, and I think you do need to kind of get your legs under you. It takes a couple of years. Go look back at even your favorite GMs now. Their first draft class is probably bad. Like it's almost funny. You look back, and I think they learn on the job. They learn how to delegate. They learn how to trust the people around them. I would say maybe Brad Holmes in Detroit. If I had to pick a young GM that I think is doing a very good job, obviously not perfect, nobody is, but has made this franchise from a doormat to a legitimate contender in the NFC. I think with a lot of sharp moves, and I think he knows how to identify talent.
All right, guys, I got to get a read on from you to start the season. 2 teams, legitimate Super Bowl contenders, but missing a big piece as of right now. Last year's Defensive Player of the Year, Nick Bosa holding out with the 49ers, and Chris Jones, who I believe finished 3rd. I think Micah Parsons was between the two of them in voting for the Defensive Player of the Year. 2 phenomenal defensive players that aren't on Super Bowl contenders before the year starts. Now, they could both sign in the next 24 hours, and this is going to become completely meaningless. But as we sit here today, those are 2 big pieces missing from teams that think they can go and win it all. Where are those 2 negotiations at? Anybody overly asking or risking is one of the 2 teams, as John's pointing out, not, being foolish and not getting something done. Where do you see both of those negotiations heading?
Yeah, I think the Niners and Bosa are closer, and I have more confidence they're going to get something done there for a couple of reasons. First, I mean, it's the second contract. It's not a third deal for a 29-year-old player like Chris Jones. I think they already know he's going to become the highest paid defensive player in the NFL, above Aaron Donald at $31 and 2/3 million. So it's a question of how much above that, but also the Niners structure their deals very uniquely. It's a complicated process, so I think they will get there. It's just ironing out some of the details. Joey Bosa, who has the same agent and obviously is Nick's brother, went right down to the wire as well before becoming the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. So I have way more confidence there. With Kansas City, I think it's a couple things going on there. First, the Chiefs obviously know he's a special player. I think he is still going to be good for a couple more years. I'm not overly concerned by the age, but they've shown they're not going to give these third contracts out very easily. From what I've heard, I haven't been able to confirm this firsthand, but look, Chris Jones is awesome. I've heard the requests or the demands are kind of outlandish. The numbers I've been told that he's asking for, I think he's an awesome player, but I probably wouldn't give it to him either. So I don't want to, it's not something I've been able to learn firsthand. But anyway, I have more faith in Nick Bosa getting done before week 1 than I do Chris Jones.
Yeah, offensively, the guy you talk about complicating things at 29 with Chris Jones, third contracts, Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. I mean, you talk about a 30-year-old guy. I got to count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seasons, cracked 1,000 yards every single season. That is amazing consistency. But he's 9 years in. He's 30. How do you give him what he deserves? Man, that is a difficult decision if I'm a GM.
It is. And it also, of course, where the team is right now, they're not good, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to be good, the next couple of years. They got to turn over a lot of older players on this roster. You unfortunately have Ryan Jensen, the center, who you made one of the highest paid players in his position in the NFL, tried to kind of do some wonky science last year to come back to play football with Tom Brady, which is awesome, and credit to him for trying to do that, but he may have ended his career in the process. So it's tough because as awesome as he's been, you do start to get like kind of Julio Jones vibes where he doesn't, Mac Evans that is, he doesn't practice a lot. His hamstrings are always bothering him. He has, managed to battle it out and go over 1,000 yards, like you said, every single season of his career. But you could see the drop off coming rather precipitously. So it is a very tough one. But I come back to, he signs a 5-year extension. This is why you're seeing guys sign 3- and 4-year deals, because now he's going into the last year. The team has all the leverage. He probably should have gotten paid before. He's been a team player. He's offered to take pay cuts during the Brady era. He hasn't missed a single practice during training camp, all those things. And it sounds like they're not really close. It's a tough spot, and it shows again to fans, like you complain, oh, this guy's not showing up, or you have to weaponize any leverage you have, because these teams, they might say they care about being a team player and all that. They don't.
Give me, and this is for my own edification, and everybody else can learn while I'm learning, cap clarity on the whole Ryan Jensen thing. There's a chance he's never going to play football again. But he doesn't want to retire because he doesn't know 100%, but it just looks very much like he's never going to play again. Does the team have any recourse to try and cover themselves on the cap and the hit that they're going to take for the guy? There's one thing to pay out of pocket, but there's also the cap and insurance you can collect on to end up paying him. How does a guy like Jensen's situation work itself out for a team like Tampa Bay?
Yeah, so they actually already did kind of rework his contract. They turned the 2024 season, which was a real contract year. It's now a void year. They're actually going to do something the Eagles always do with a lot of these older players is you basically carry the guy into 2024. You then, post June 1 release him and spread his cap hits over 2024 and 2025. We've seen that with a handful of players, Brandon Brooks, etc. I could name probably 5 Eagles, Alshon Jeffrey and, all these guys they've done that with. So that's what they're going to do. In terms of getting cash back or anything like that, I think when a player does make a sacrifice like this and try to return for a playoff run, with Tom Brady, I don't think they're going to go after his money or try to get out of paying him, because he was doing it for the team and obviously trying to be there for a key year for the franchise. But yeah, from a cap standpoint, they've already kind of manipulated the numbers there a little bit.
want to rewind. I should have asked you right away, but TJ's deal, since that's the most recent, kind of reset the tight end market. Very good player. I would rate him behind the big three and probably Dallas, Goddard here. Probably the fifth best tight end. Very good player. That's sort of how things work normally. But when you look at the contract, good for the player, good for the team. Where would you place yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a great contract for TJ Hawkinson. I agree. I think he's a top 5 tight end, but probably closer to 5 than to 1.
Sure.
But the thing is, when you get traded for top end draft capital, Vikings send a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick over to Detroit, and then you come in and you're 2nd in receptions and receiving yards behind only Travis Kelce from post-trade deadline through the end of the season. You're going to get a big old bag of money. And so he earned it. He deserves it. We've seen guys that, they get traded to a new place. It's hard to acclimate, learn a new playbook, all these things. And for him to be that seamless, I think, this deal was, you knew you were paying at least, I think $16 million or so per year. So I know on paper it's $16.5 million per year. At the 4-year, $66. When I break it down, it's a 3-year, $48 million contract. I don't really think he's going to make the $18 million in the 4th and final year. So that's good for Minnesota. But no, this was good for TJ Hawkinson, and also really, really good for the tight end market itself. They needed this deal to come through. Everyone talks about running backs, as they should, but tight end has been stagnant as well, and this deal helps push it forward.
All right, then let's talk about another position that seemed to have been devalued, at least here in Philadelphia, because we're on Birds 365, and that's linebacker, where the Eagles have exactly 3 of them on their roster right now, none of which are making any money whatsoever. So as devalued as running back might be, linebacker even more so here in Philadelphia. How is it league-wide? Are the Eagles, we know they're not on an island by themselves, but they in the corner of that island with others on it? Are there teams that still value linebackers? How would you describe the value of the linebacker position in the NFL heading into the 2023 season?
Yeah, the Eagles aren't alone, but they certainly are an outlier. They really have never used top-end draft capital or spent significant money. I think like Michael Kendricks is the biggest deal they've given out, and that was probably 2013, 2014. I think it's smart, frankly, where you're going to spend more than everybody else on defensive line, and you also do want to spend on cornerback, sometimes safety. Obviously, right now they're not really spending anything at safety, but that's their approach. If you're going to spend at some spot, you got to give elsewhere, and they've determined off-ball linebacker is that spot for them. So there are other teams that follow the same strategy, but then you also look at, a team like Baltimore, use a 1st-round pick on Patrick Queen, then trade a 2nd and a 5th to go get Roquan Smith, make him the highest paid linebacker in the NFL. You have the San Francisco 49ers, who spend on defensive line, as much as the Niners do, but also have Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. So it is team to team. The Steelers haven't really spent there in quite a while either. I guess with Andy Weidel in town, maybe that doesn't change. So, yeah, that one's more spread out, but the Eagles aren't alone in thinking we can have a great pass rush, a good secondary, and then just have guys that can just clean up and make tackles and run sideline to sideline, and it's obviously worked for
them. Jonathan Taylor, we got to talk about him in the running back situation. Indianapolis, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They obviously don't want to pay Jonathan top of the line money, probably just under Christian McCaffrey. But and then they're asking Miami for Jalen Waddle, which kind of says, well, this is a good player. A lot of people talk about negotiating in good faith. Do NFL teams negotiate in good faith when it comes to running backs?
And that's a good question. And there's actually language in the CBA itself talking about, good faith negotiations, which is borderline impossible to prove it's not happening. I've talked to agents about it, particularly this offseason, kind of like, have you ever thought about filing a grievance or trying to, and they say it's just so hard to prove the valuations of players and all these different things. But to a degree, no. I really don't think this offseason in particular, the running back negotiations were in good faith. I have not gotten any first-hand knowledge on Josh Jacobs, but I don't think there were any real conversations there. As far as Saquon Barkley, what we saw in the media, in my opinion, if you're not giving a contract offer, once you franchise tag a player, I think you should have to offer a deal that contains a fully guaranteed money amount equivalent to 2 franchise tags, because basically that is what you're leveraging. You're saying we can just tag you twice and then let you go, and obviously that is fully guaranteed money. So look, it could be 2 franchise tags fully guaranteed, not much above that. But I think if you're not at that number, I would argue it's not necessarily good faith, and it sounds like maybe they offer Barkley that at the very end. So anyway, yeah, no, I mean the position is so devalued at this point. But then you mentioned the hypocrisy of the Colts, and I knew all along the Colts didn't want to trade him. The reports about Jalen Waddle and a first-round pick and all that, it's basically them saying, we're not going to trade you, but we'll give you the opportunity to go talk to other teams to see what contract they're willing to offer. But it's all moot in the end. I'm not surprised with the result.
And I got to give the Raiders credit. At least Adams got, Jacobs got above what the franchise tag was with straight salary. It was 10 and change, and he got 11 million. So at least they did up it some, which I would call good faith negotiating on the Raiders' part. All right, big negotiation that we don't get as much information on as we would like, because it does have an effect on the entire league. It's Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts got the ball rolling, got signed. Lamar got slightly more, and then Herbert got slightly more than Lamar. We knew Burrow was going to get more than Herbert. The question was, how slight is slightly, or is it significantly more? And then, of course, he gets hurt in preseason. His back is working. Looks like he's going to go at number 1. Anything you've heard about that negotiation? Contentious, close? They're okay with just tabling it till in season? How's it going in Cincinnati between Burrow and the Bengals?
Yeah, my understanding is they definitely do want to get it done. I don't know if the injury impacted it, but I don't think it did. But the sticking point is still just how the Cincinnati Bengals structure their contracts, where they do not guarantee money outside of signing bonuses. And when you're talking about a guy who's competing against players who've now gotten $200 million guaranteed, several guys now, not just the Deshaun Watsons, but Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert and all these things, if you're only going to guarantee a signing bonus, even if you give an $80 million signing bonus, which is probably what Burrow would have asked in that scenario, maybe even more, it complicates everything, because then it's a cash flow conversation. Justin Herbert got phenomenal cash flows in his deal. Basically, Lamar Jackson set the record for $80 million in new money in the first new year of his deal. Herbert got $100 million in new money through the first new year of his deal. So, you're raising it by 25%, and then Burrow's supposed to top that. So I think it does get done. I think Cincinnati is going to bend a little bit on contractual precedent. We saw it with Trey Hendrickson. They gave an extension to a player with 2 years left for the first time they've ever done that in the current CBA. It goes back to like Carson Palmer in 2005, I think was the last time they did it. So I think they're going to get it done. I think we will see an extension before week 1.
Yeah, they have to get it done. By the way, you think Jefferson's getting done before week 1 as well?
No, I think there's close to a 0% chance Justin Jefferson gets done before week 1.
Wow.
Yeah, I would be shocked.
Interesting. You think that's going to be an issue moving forward?
I don't. I get that he's a special talent. I think you could argue he's the most valuable non-quarterback in the entire NFL. But you look back historically, when you're a first-round pick after your 3rd season, yes, you're eligible for a deal. But if you're a non-quarterback, it's pretty rare you get that deal. I mean, we're talking about Nick Bosa and all those guys. He was already a special player as well, and they waited till after that 4th season. That is more standard. Is the non-QBs wait till after the 4th year as opposed to after 3.
All right, I want to give you a chance to just talk about the National Football League, not salary cap related, just prediction, and the like. How good is Aaron Rodgers going to be after he takes the Jets to the Super Bowl?
I think they're going to be good. I was at Jets camp the day after John and I hung out at Eagles camp, and look, the offensive line gives me a little bit of concern. I think it is a good thing that Mekhi Becton won that right tackle job. He's probably the most talented player in the building, but outside of that, the defense is, I think, maybe the best defense in the NFL from top to bottom. Then you have, pretty good weapons. Garrett Wilson was open all day long in that practice that I saw. Alan Lazard had the highlight of the day with a touchdown down the right sideline. Like, not only I think they're loaded at a lot of spots, but also have pretty good depth. The only weakness in my eyes is that offensive line. But if they get healthy with Dwayne Brown and Elijah Vera Tucker, specifically, I think they're an average or slightly above average O-line, and that's their worst unit on the entire roster.
And Rodgers will help that as well. Jody's a Jets guy, Brad, if you don't know. So he's brimming. I think they're going to be
green
great.
Super Bowl Eagles.
I think
write it down 90-1. Go ahead and get to your sports betting app. Put it in now.
He's motivated. I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers. He wants to stick it to the Packers. I think they're going to have a special season. Obviously, everything comes down to injuries, but boy, he's. I think the Jets are going to be really, really good. Now that we've gotten to the down to the 53, still some movement is going to happen until next week, a little bit here and there. But I probably a difficult question, but I'm going to throw it out at you. You can handle it. Give me the 2 or 3 best roster builders in the NFL. So, that involves salary cap and personnel. Who do you think does it the best in the modern environment?
There's always a question of are we doing full body of work their entire career or the last couple seasons? I'll say this answer is the last, 3-4 years. Howie Roseman is number 1. I'm not saying that just because I'm on this show. I think I called him the executive of the year in 2021 when they made when they tanked in week 18 and traded for Devontae Smith and all that. But yeah, Eagles are a number 1 because I said recently what Duke Tobin has done in Cincinnati.
He's done a phenomenal job, Duke Tobin.
It's exceptional.
He's got a sample like 3 people, Brad. Howie's got like 50.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Where again, I'm not taking away from Howie, but he probably has the most resources at his disposal of anyone, and Duke Tobin probably has the least. And he is, I just love the way they've done free agency and the draft the last couple of years. They're also a team where I like the starters. I like the depth a lot as well, and that does matter. So them 2 in the last couple of years, I think, stick out. The third could be a handful of teams. I mean, you got to give Brett Veach some credit. I probably wouldn't, is off the top of my head, but I think they have done a good job in particularly balancing. I mean, look at last offseason, an offseason where people thought they were going to take a step back and not be as good. They saved themselves. Saved themselves a ton of money with Tyreek Hill, add some extra draft capital, and still win the Super Bowl. Yes, having Patrick Mahomes makes your job easier, but he deserves credit for, like the Rams, they win a Super Bowl, they make Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp, and now look at them. So he was patient and he thought long-term and short-term, which I know is hard to do for a lot of these guys.
With Veach, though, when push comes to shove, Andy's making the decisions, right? Here in Philadelphia, push comes to shove, Nick's being consulted, how he's making the decisions. On personnel, is Andy dictating Veach more so than maybe other coaches dictate the general managers around the league?
I would assume so. They're a handful, Reed, Belichick, Pete Carroll, they have a lot of power and a lot of say. I'm sure that is the case with Andy Reid, but still to Veach's credit, you have to work with that, work around that, work through that. I know Mahomes was his guy, and everyone will tell you that was he put his stamp on it and really, really pushed hard for that. So yeah, that is fair. But I still think, if I had more time to think about it, maybe he would be number 3, but I think he's top 5, top 7 for sure.
At PFF_Brad, make sure you follow Brad Spielberger on X. Does a tremendous job at Pro Football Focus and Over the Cap. Best contract guy in the business as far as I'm concerned, and that's because he knows football as well. Brad, week 1 is coming up, and it's going to be Eagles going up to Foxborough for Tom Brady Day. I've been waiting. Everyone says this league is cyclical and you sort of have a pendulum effect and everybody's going one way, and it's the positionalist players, the hybrid safeties, linebackers, all these undersized guys. And we talked about the devaluation of the running back before. Is anybody going to wake up and say, there's a bunch of light guys on that side, I'm just going to start going downhill, zag when everybody else is zigging when everybody else is zagging? Or are we past that? It's just not possible.
No, I think to a degree, yeah. I mean, the Patriots, I think, are an example. It's kind of funny. Their offense, I think, is built to attack smaller defenses and go after those hybrid players. But then on defense, they had the fewest snaps played by linebackers in the NFL last year because they love those, Jabril Peppers, Adrian Phillips, Kyle Duggar type guys that are kind of safety linebacker hybrids. But no, I think it is still a thing. I think you are going to see teams lean into that if they don't feel they have a great quarterback or whatever the case may be. I think right now England is probably the best example. But yeah, at a certain point, if everyone's light and everyone's trying to defend the pass and give up against the run, which some teams like the Rams and Chargers basically just want you to run the football on them.
Yeah.
You'll see a transition back. I think we will see that.
All right, along those lines, 3 quarterbacks taken at the top of the draft this past year, first, second, fourth. All of them have physical capabilities. Stroud shocked everybody with his big run in the championship game against Georgia. But, he can run too. Yeah, he can. As can Young. We know Richardson can. How much of maybe a flip, maybe a trend, a little swing of the pendulum is running quarterback going to play in this league going forward? We got ours here in Philly. How about everybody else?
I think at this point, even if the guy is not a player you want to use on designed runs, you need to now have a quarterback who can scramble. So again, we're talking about the pass game, right? So if you have defenses that have light boxes, that are playing too high coverage almost every snap, that are always a nickel or dime or whatever, and are dropping back to protect, like no one thinks of Patrick Mahomes as a running quarterback. He's the best scrambler in the NFL and gets so many rushing yards and so many first downs because everyone drops 8 against him. Josh Allen too, Jalen Hurts as well, but obviously also, his game is actually running the football. So I think if you have a guy that can't take advantage of, hey, pick up 7 yards here, get a first down here with a scramble, you're behind the 8 ball. So not necessarily a Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson, but I think you need to have a guy who can now take advantage of, free space to pick up 7-8 yards.
Yeah, so don't get too high on Tanner McKee if you're an Eagles fan.
Hey, he looked good. He looked good the day I was there. He's got some zip, but not the best athlete on the field that day.
No, he had a great preseason, but yeah, he's an old school 6'6", a little bit under Brad Spielberger, traditional pocket passer. Those guys are becoming dinosaurs. No question about it. Probably rightfully so.
Yeah.
But Brad does a tremendous job. Again, at PFF_Brad. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. And it was good to see you, Brad. It was good to see you at Eagles camp. And how impressed were you? But how many camps you go to?
I've been to 4 now. Eagles definitely had a nice setup. I was impressed.
Now, the Jets, I told you, they had a nice setup. Did they have everything set up?
You were not lying. Yeah, the Jets probably top of that list. You were not lying at all.
The only thing when you go to Jet practice is you got to get somewhere near the tree, so you get a little.
The tree is awesome. I love the Jets facility. Love it.
If you get a little shade time in the tree, you had a good day at Jet camp. Brad, great stuff. We're going to tap into you plenty during the season. Thanks for jumping in with us today. Before we get it underway, we'll get back to you and get you back on again soon enough.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Brad Spielberg at Pro Football Focus. Their cap analyst does a great job at crunching the numbers. And don't kid yourself, that's a big part of building NFL teams these days. Talent evaluation is always going to be number one, but a very close second is the ability.
And by the way, Brad, and he's not playing up to the fan base here on Burst 365. Called Howie Roseman the best roster builder in the NFL. And I can't disagree with him.
That's what we'll be talking about as we get to game number 1, Patriots next Sunday, the roster building. And if this roster that Howie Roseman has put together is the best in the NFL. If it's not, it's damn close. And nobody going to argue, they got a lousy roster. No, we know the Eagles have a very good roster. They still got a couple questions to answer, but they've got a very talented roster. All right, McMullen and McDonald coming back. We need to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac, guys, for the wrap on not only today's show, but the weekend show number 600. McMullen and McDonald been doing this 600 times. Well, yeah, John misses shows because you got to go to practice. I miss shows every once in a while because I got to do a WIP show. But we've done most of the 600 shows that Birds 365 have done together.
We're the foundation of the show, though, Jody. You and I.
Yeah, we are unquestioned the foundation. So for those of you still tuned in who didn't get out early, thanks for hanging. Hit the like button on the way out. Give us a little love. Come on, I think we've earned a little after 600 shows. All right, Johnny Mac, I'm going to give you a chance to recoup a little bit here.
All right.
You got beat in the roster building.
Yeah.
contest.
By the way, Andrew DeCecco won. Congratulations.
He did with the practice squad tiebreaker.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that means he's got to be on next week.
Yeah.
We got to go tip of the cap to him. We definitely have to get him on next week because we got to book 4 days next week. We're off on Labor Day. Happy Labor Day in advance, everybody. So DeCecco earned a spot. We'll get him up if he's available. I think we need to do that. All right. And you came up short. You've been in the running every single year, always close. You get very prideful when you win. You get pissed off when you lose. So you're a little ticked off this year. And you said ahead of time you knew it could very well come down to Garner or Ricks. Who are they going to keep? You were a Garner guy. They ended up keeping Ricks. I tried to talk you into Ricks looked that good in the preseason game.
Yeah, but
they don't pay attention to preseason.
Well,
except they do when they pick Albert O.
Yeah,
I'm
more pissed off about them lying to me. But even if I picked Ricks, I would have been tied with 8 people, and then I would have lost to Andrew. And Andrew got 10 practice squad guys right.
Nice.
I still would have lost. So
okay.
But yeah, I was trying to shoot my shot. And if they woke up and said, hey, special teams is pretty important and we're going to get Ricks back anyway, I thought maybe. So that was my thought process.
All right. So I'm going to give you a chance to right the wrong here. Week 1, regular season, the 46-man roster. All we talk about is the 53. Oh, understood. But then on game day, you got to get it down to 46. They're not going to dress all those cornerbacks, Johnny Mac.
No.
I think it comes down to Ricks or Ringo. We know they selected Ringo in the draft and probably got a break. A lot of people had him going higher than where the Eagles were able to finally select him. And Ricks, of course, an undrafted free agent. So the status of where they were taken and the like, all we've had to judge so far is the preseason. I've judged. I think Ricks, if you get an injury, if either Bradbury and or Slate turn an ankle and you got to put someone in it, it's going to be Job. I get it. He's going to go first. If you've got, which means the next man up is the next man up. You got to have the guy who you, if need be, can throw in there and have him make a play in the second half against the Patriots. You think they activate Ringo or Ricks?
Ringo. But nothing.
You didn't learn anything.
Nothing to do with cornerback. Nothing. Literally nothing to do with cornerback. Because special teams, complete special teams at that point. When you're talking
Ringo
about the
that
right
much better at special teams than Ricks?
Much.
Have you been breaking down special teams film on me and not telling me?
Much better. Much better. Eli's not a good special teams player. Maybe Kemby's a great athlete, but he hasn't taken to it yet. Ringo's got a chance to be a really good special teams player, and that's what I got to believe that the Eagles are defaulting to by cutting guys that are demonstrated performance guys on special teams. He's got a chance because he can run. Those Georgia guys, because Nolan Smith is, takes this, evidently they teach him that it's important. Nothing to do with cornerback. I'm with you. Ringo was not good playing corner over the summer. All these guys, Ricks was better than him. Gardner was better than him. Goodrich all of them were better than Ringo at corner. He's got a long way to go. But as far as a special teams player, he's got a chance. And that's where he can make his impact early in his career.
If you tell me that he's that much better a special teams player, I'm with you. All right, then I won't complain when he gets on the roster week 1 and Ricks is on the inactive list. But better go out and make a special teams play then. If that's the reason that you're going to be playing, you're going to be active on game day, better go down there and make a key tackle, Mr. Ringo.
Yeah, and he might be one of the gunners. And we'll see because, we're not done yet, Jody. They have to make a decision on punter. If they sign a punter, if they sign one of these punters they worked out to the 53, all of a sudden they have an extra elevation, and that can, then maybe they can elevate Cubby to be the punt returner, and they can elevate Gardner or Van Sumeren to be a special teams player, and maybe they want the corner. Maybe they want Ricks at that point. Maybe they want more of the. So there's a lot of things that need to be figured out still. Not a lot, but a few dominoes that have to fall.
Yeah, you don't think they're going to have a punter for week 1, do you? You think it's just going to be Sipas elevated?
I think we'll know probably later today. Well, they're off today, so they might kick it back to next week. I kind of felt like because of the way they described it to us, they made it very clear when they were cutting Sipas that he might be back.
Yeah, he could be back. They left that door definitely ajar, and now we know they opened it up for it. He walked through onto the practice squad, not onto the roster, but on the practice squad.
Yeah, but if one of these guys opened that, they did bring them in. They said they were going to bring him in. They brought in 3 guys. If one of these guys is significantly better, but I don't see them being significantly better. Yeah, I'm with you. It's probably more likely.
I think it's going to be Sipas, but that's something we'll talk about next week, which, oh, by the way, doesn't start till Tuesday. Thanks to our buddy Joe Krause giving us the holiday off, allowing us to enjoy Labor Day. You should as well, because then thereafter, every other Monday, you're going to have to be right here on Birds 365 because we'll be on after the Eagles, giving you all the breakdown that you need. Johnny Mac, know you're going to be working, but if you get a breath, enjoy your long weekend.
You too. Enjoy it, everybody. Happy Labor Day to all the listeners as well, Jody.
And then the season gets underway, and we'll be here for you guys all year long on Birds 365. We'll be back in 3 and 3. That's days till after Labor Day. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365. the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.